to scream from the rooftop, we have a religious crisis. But everyone's like, but we need to separate religion from politics. You're like, no, what we're doing is we've removed politics and now all we have is religion. And it's all religious debates. It's all religious conversations. It's like sex, religion, and then from there, how we use politics to enforce it. Like, it's just a religious debate.
Yes. Okay. That's good. Right. We've removed okay. That's one way. Maybe that's a nice way of presenting the problem that we're facing it's that now, and I'm going to pull up a quote here in a second, but that we've removed the politics. It's the politics or the way of doing politics that has been thrown out. And now we're just having religious and if not theological, metaphysical debates, right, is really what we're doing. We're having these public metaphysical debates where previously we had a shared or common metaphysics so that we could do politics. Right.
Yes.
But now
politics was a good mediating
because we have to do metaphysics. We have to do metaphysics and theology at the popular level. Right. Public in the public square. Let me pull up this.
It's like politics is like
this is
politics is kind of like a beneficiary of religious solidarity almost.
So it's the functional outworking of religious ideology.
Yeah, I think I'd be willing to say that.
Yeah, this is by I found this article quite good. It's on Substack. Matthew Burdett is the author's name, and he's making a similar point. I'm just going to read this one part, and we can kind of riff off of this because I think it's similar to what Logan just sort of summarized or encapsulated for us, this idea. Burdett says this. He says, however, under the conditions of our ever-deepening anthropological crisis, where our politics is not about securing conditions in which we can transcend our animal needs in the cultural sphere of distinctive human life, our politics has taken on the role of determining what it ought to look like for us to transcend animal needs. Rather than arising from culture, our politics has become about forging culture, but that means our political life has come to be about fundamental metaphysical claims about the human being and what separates the human from the animals. So there's that idea that where we once had a shared metaphysic that allowed us to do politics in a certain way, at least a fruitful way. Now politics just is sort of devolved or not devolved. Yeah. Well, now we don't have that necessary condition of being able to do politics. Our politics is the debate over metaphysical claims, over fundamental truth claims. Right. And that's the difference. There's that article again. And we can link to that as well. It's a good article.
Yeah, I think the thing that I would point out, though, is it depends on what he means by ever deepening. And this is where I might agree. I don't know if it was like political conflicts led to deeper political conflicts, led to deeper ones, to then anthropological, to then crisis. I think what it was is we were sort of doing politics as politics, and then one day realized the entire anthropological theological structure was gone, and then it kicked into a vicious political crisis. So when you say ever deepening, I don't know if it means if he's saying in a chronological way or even in a moral way of this is how it's progressed. I don't know if I'd agree with that. I think there was a theological vacuum that happened. This goes to the same thing, and this is what I was talking before the podcast about Leo Strauss's article on German nihilism. He thinks that ultimately what ended up happening was a culture emerged, the church failed. It became a very like, oh, society is just a rules base, but there's really no backing for the rules. And then people are like, I hate this. I want something that's real. The rules are fake. And the only thing that was left that's actually real, despite anyone's ideological beliefs, is violence. That's the only thing that people see as a very real thing. You can build sacrifice off it. You can build a lot of these virtues off of it. Lewis talks about this, that courage is the necessary condition for virtue. So people resort to a violent society to then reestablish the virtues. In this case, in the German situation with Leo Schaustalk, that didn't happen. But that's his sort of general commentary on why it went the way it did, is because it went for something real.
One of the things that I have noticed is that if you look at pre-Christian societies, all of them really are modeled on an honor-shame basis of this is how society's held together. The Spartans are all about warfare, and if your child is born club-footed, you throw him over the edge of the cliff because he's not going right. Come back either with your shield or on it, is the Spartan rule. And you have the Roman polis, and the Romans are the center of the world, and therefore it is Rome above all. And this is why the Christians were so hated, not because they worshiped Jesus. That's not what drove the Romans to persecute them. It was that they wouldn't worship Caesar. And for the Roman mind, if you don't worship Caesar, you're undermining Rome itself. You don't put Rome above your personal desires. And that was the thing that they considered non-negotiable. So, but all of these societies, they keep the outsiders in check through an honor-shame culture. And even in the Japanese or other, right, if you bring shame onto your family, you get a finger cut off. Or if a Muslim culture, if you've been caught with a woman and the woman slept out of wedlock, she gets stoned because it brings shame to your family. So all of these, and what we're seeing in our culture today, this is the reason why I bring it up, is because we're reverting back to an honor-shame society. It used to be a guilt-innocence culture. Christianity taught a guilt-innocence culture, that the son isn't guilty for the sins of the father. You don't put the son in jail because the father did X. Each person has their own culpability based on their actions, and they all have to answer before God themselves. You could have a wicked king, and then you could have a righteous king come right underneath him. So guilt innocence was a Christian-based understanding, but when we lose Christianity, we lose the guilt innocence culture, and we're reverting back to an honor-shame society. It seems to be the natural default for humanity.
Well, that's true, and there is a place for both honor and virtue, honor and shame.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's gonna be relevant to what your understanding of the good is, right? It's going to you are shamed in light of what? That's a very different answer in Islamic world or a pagan world than in a Christian world, right? Where we do feel shame when we sin or transgress against God, and that's right, and that can lead us to repentance. But our God is, the true God. It's not Allah. It's not some pagan deity or the emperor, because the honor and the shame that's being meted out is in this right now is with regards to. It's not with regards to what God considers honorable or shameful. It's with regards to what certain groups of men, or actually usually women in the culture, consider honorable or shameful. Right. So, So and in Christian culture, you're right. We do have honor and shame. You'll never escape that. But the honor and shame derived from your guilt before God, or your guilt before your fellow man. You were guilty of doing something. Right.
And again, one of the benefits of a guilt-innocent society is there can be grace, there can be forgiveness. That guilt can then go away. You can have your debts paid for. You can be, saved, propitiation, to use a theological term. Those in honor-shame societies, again, you stone the person, you have to lose something. You have to, there is no grace in an honor-shame based culture.
And that we're certainly seeing, right? I mean, we're becoming a moralistic
doxum
culture, incapable of having any kind of process of forgiveness and redemption. I mean, it's just you just have to lose something. Period.
Yes, but
if it was 20 years ago, hey, if that post is on X or what have you, it still counts. Doesn't matter what you've done with your life. And you were 17, you did X in college, or that's that. You still have to pay for that.
Yeah, but this is where I want to really highlight, because we finally sort of brought about, I think, kind of the core I guess procedure that resulted in kind of affirming the crisis. In a normally functioning society, especially we'll say the United States. In the United States, if it was functioning normal, the guilt and innocent culture would be able to reassert itself through guilty verdicts and innocent verdicts. That has not been the case for a very long time. And when people look to Christianity or to the churches and say, okay, can you hold people accountable? Is it possible for you to hold people accountable? In other words, is it possible for you to inflict real harm upon people who are guilty? And your answer is no. Then they look somewhere else. And in this case, they're going to honor shame cultures. Why? Because the punishments can be dealt, and they're dealt effectively, and they destroy people's lives. In their case, they destroy the right people's. Not always is the case, and I think we're seeing it's overshooting, but like the Me Too thing, it was a textbook case of a reassertion of an honor shame, and it wasn't really about whether in fact you did the problem, if it did the act, or you did X, Y, and Z, but that it was powerful enough that even conspiracies of doing something was enough to get somebody removed from office, removed from their job, loss of house, loss of income, destruction of their family. And so this is what I was saying in connection to the Leo Strauss article, is that you see that what people will do is they say, are we really morally serious? And if we're not, we need to reassert the moral seriousness. And generally you look to the institutions that are already existing to do that. And if they're not able to do that, then you have the motivation to attack those institutions for the sake of asserting something else that can deal out punishment. We will look at this as justice. And so the question fundamentally comes down to is that the church has lacked the ability to enforce its justice. And so now it has sort of motivated the religious crisis.